Hey guys, today we are going to talk about angles. Alright, so what is an angle? If you're going to actually define an angle, how would you define it? And so really an angle is just two rays that share a common endpoint. So if you think back to our last videos, we described a ray as one endpoint and going past another point and going out forever. So an angle is just when two of these connect at one endpoint. And so right now our two rays are going to be AT with the angle arrow keep going that way, or AP. Those are our two rays. All right, so if we're going to label this angle, we can label this as angle 1. See, this right here denotes which angle that we're trying to use. So by having this little input right here, we can say that this is angle 1. If there is only one point here, so there's no other lines, you can also call this angle A. All right, so that's tricky. I wouldn't recommend using that, but you can in this instance. The fail-safe one is to pretty much identify your two rays. And so to do this, you could say angle TAP or angle PAT. The important thing is the A is in the center. So that's going to tell you start at one end and you go to the other end. That tells you exactly which angle you're going to look at. So those are your 4 names that you can name an angle. And still, every time you're going to write, this is the form for angle. A lot of times if you see this written on a computer, it doesn't have that other line. It just looks like this. But for me, I like to write that, put the second line right there to help denote that that's actually an angle and not an L or some other number. Okay. Second thing is, how do you know which part are you talking about? So you're talking about this part or this part? So when you're looking at an angle, if I said, I want you to measure angle GPS, you're always going to measure the smaller of the two angles. This is what I'm referring to as the angle. If I want you to find the other side, you would either have like 360 degrees minus the measure of the angle GPS. You can say that, 360, because that's a full circle. Or you can also say the reflex measure of the angle. So that refers to the opposite side. But the angle is always the smaller side. All right. The second thing we're going to talk about is congruent angles. So just like with lines, remember if we had 2 line segments, a line segment here and a line segment here, and if these 2 segments were congruent, you put a dash through it. Or when you said, so this is like A, B, C, D, and we said that AB is then congruent to CD, or that the measure of AB was equal to the measure of CD. The same exact thing applies for angles. So in this case, if you're going to label these, this would be DOG or GOD. That angle is then congruent. Remember, we're going to use this congruent sign? Congruent to CAT or TAC. Or you can say that the measure of the angles are equal to each other. Both cases, that's what we're talking about when we say congruence. All right.